Most men think violence looks like fists, threats, or force. That's because men are taught to recognize danger in physical form. But the most damaging violence men experience doesn't leave bruises. It leaves confusion, self-doubt, erosion of identity. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe and like the video. This is Depth Realm, where we expose the patterns people aren't trained to see. Psychological violence doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't attack directly. It destabilizes slowly. And men are especially vulnerable to it. Not because they are weak, but because they are conditioned to tolerate emotional pain silently. Here's the first shock. Most women who use psychological violence are not consciously malicious. They are regulating their own emotions by destabilizing yours. Psychological violence is not about control through fear. It's about control through emotional imbalance. And once you understand the mechanisms, you'll realize how common and normalized it has become. The most powerful weapon isn't anger. It's withholding. Affection withheld. Approval withheld. Reassurance withheld. Sex withheld. Emotional warmth withheld. Not communicated. Not explained. Just removed. Men are biologically wired to seek emotional feedback from intimate partners. When that feedback disappears without reason, the nervous system panics. And panic creates compliance. This is the foundation of psychological violence. The second mechanism is reality distortion. You express discomfort. She reframes it as insecurity. You point out inconsistency. She reframes it as control. You ask for clarity. She reframes it as pressure. Over time, you stop trusting your perceptions. Not because you're wrong, but because every emotional boundary you set is pathologized. This is not communication. The psychological erosion. The third mechanism is emotional unpredictability. Warm one day, cold the next. Affection without explanation. Distance without cause. The male brain responds to unpredictability by increasing focus. It tries to stabilize the environment. So you give more, explain more, accommodate more. And the more you adapt, the more power shifts away from you. Unpredictability creates dependency. This is not love. It's conditioning. Another tactic is moral leverage. She frames herself as the wounded party, even when she initiated harm. You become responsible for her feelings, her mood, her reactions. If she's distant, you caused it. If she's upset, you should know why. If she withdraws, you're expected to fix it. Responsibility without authority is psychological violence. Because you are held accountable for outcomes you cannot control. Then comes public-private inversion. In public, she praises you. In private, she devalues you. In public, she appears supportive. In private, she undermines confidence. This creates cognitive dissonance. You doubt your own experience because others see a different version. Isolation begins not physical isolation, but experiential isolation. You feel alone in your perception. Another form is emotional punishment without explanation. Silence. Withdrawal. Distance. No feedback loop. Punishment without rules trains hypervigilance. You start monitoring tone, timing, words, reactions. You stop being present. You start performing. And performance is the death of masculinity. Here's the part men don't expect. Psychological violence often escalates when you improve. When you gain confidence. When you set boundaries. When you become less dependent. Because autonomy threatens emotional leverage. So the tactics intensify. Accusations. Victim narratives. Threats of leaving. Comparison to other men. Implied replacement. This is attachment warfare. And it works because men are taught that emotional endurance equals strength. So they stay. They rationalize. They minimize. They internalize blame. Until something breaks. Usually not outwardly. Internally. Self-doubt replaces clarity. Anxiety replaces confidence. Compliance replaces leadership. This is why psychological violence is so destructive. It doesn't injure the body. It dismantles the self. And society rarely recognizes it because it doesn't fit the stereotype of harm. Here's the harsh truth. Men are not taught to defend emotionally. They are taught to endure. And endurance without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Now let's talk about why this happens. Psychological violence often emerges from unregulated attachment wounds. Fear of abandonment, fear of loss of control, fear of insignificance. Instead of addressing these internally, some women externalize regulation. They destabilize you so they can feel stable. Your confusion becomes their calm. Your anxiety becomes their certainty. This is not partnership. It's parasitism. Now here's the turning point. Psychological violence only works if you participate. Not knowingly, nervously, through over-explaining, through chasing reassurance, through sacrificing boundaries for peace. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, the pattern breaks. Because manipulation requires emotional engagement. Silence, clarity, and consistency dismantle psychological violence faster than confrontation ever could. Here is the defense every man needs. First, your perception is valid unless proven otherwise. Second, affection must be mutual, not conditional. Third, no one gets to punish you emotionally without explanation. Fourth, guilt is not evidence. Fifth, peace is the metric, not intensity. When you hold these lines, something changes. The manipulation escalates or collapses. Both outcomes give you clarity. And clarity is power. The final truth is uncomfortable. Psychological violence is effective because it's invisible. Because it's normalized. Because men are shamed for naming it. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you stop tolerating it, your nervous system recovers, your clarity returns, and your identity stabilizes. This isn't about blaming women. It's about recognizing patterns. Because emotional harm doesn't require bad intentions, only unexamined behavior. And men who understand this stop confusing love with endurance. They choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, boundaries over suffering. That's not weakness. That's psychological strength. See the pattern. Protect your energy. This is depth realm.